Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris here with you for another week as we get back into our normal routine, and we're going to cover Steel Panther's debut album, "Feel the Steel." This should be fun. It came out in 2009, but before we get there, how are you doing, bud?
I'm good. Very good. It's nice that we're kind of back on track again. Enjoyed our best of 2021 episode from last week, and part of me is kind of relieved that it's over because it was like just such just I was rushing to listen to as much as I could towards the end of the year. I did not do a good job of spreading out my material throughout the year, which I'm going to make a point to try a little bit harder this year. Um, but I thought it went well. It was cool doing it live on Twitch. We're back on Twitch today. So if anybody's joining us live, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If not, you'll be listening to this hopefully first thing Monday morning. It's the first thing you do when you wake up at 6 a.m. Eastern time.
Yes,
But
I'm
yeah,
sure. It's funny. You don't realize how much work goes into that list in terms of like thought and really kind of placement, and then revisiting things from earlier in the year. It is definitely a labor of love, but I'm happy we do it. It's one of, if not my favorite episode of the year, and it was just interesting, I think, to see where we fell out because there was definitely some overlap in our lists, but by the same token, there was other stuff that was like, I don't even know that was necessarily even on my radar, and certainly vice versa. So pretty cool, and I'm glad we did it. But it's back to our regularly scheduled program, if you will, and this was one that we were supposed to do before the Christmas holidays, but COVID got in the way, I suppose. So we're back. I'm happy we're doing it, and I also am looking forward to your album choice from next week because I have no idea what you're going to choose.
neither do I. So
There you go. There you go. It's funny. I something happened this week. I almost fell out of my chair. I was listening to another podcast. Believe it or not, there are other podcasts out there, and we do listen to some of them. So I was listening to the BBC's Global News podcast, which is they come through my feed twice a day. It's just kind of a recap of what's going on in the world. So obviously, one of the bigger stories is tennis player Novak Djokovic's issues that he's having in Australia. He didn't get vaccinated. They held him in detention. He's going through the court process right now, and there's obviously it's captivating the world because it is one of the bigger stories out there. And as I'm listening to the podcast, they basically had on somebody to discuss the legal elements of the case, and they pitched it to Daniel Estrin, a immigration attorney from Perth, Australia, who we've had on the podcast. And although we didn't discuss immigration law with him, he's probably better known to our listeners as the frontman and guitar player for Voyager. And I almost fell out of my chair. He's a friend of the show. I'm as an attorney myself. Have had discussions about that offline, but when I heard him on this podcast, I started laughing, and I shot him a message saying that we must have given him his big break because now he's on this podcast that has millions of listeners. It was really funny, and I think I sent you a message when I heard it. It was just shocking to me.
yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out that Richard West was helping out the British Parliament in the future with some legal advice. So stay tuned for that. All of our guests tend to go on to bigger and brighter things shortly after being on this podcast.
Without question, for anyone that was on with us in 2021, is sure to have a good year in 2022, and we'll still be here covering Steel Panther. So that basically sums it up in a nutshell. Just a little bit of a surprise. I have something in the works that I had mentioned to you offline. I have a feeling that may be coming out in the next week or so. So fingers crossed for that. But while I have you, anything that you listened to this week that's worth noting?
Yeah, a couple of new singles kind of came through. The only album I've gotten so far in the calendar year has been the new Wild Run album, which I really haven't had a chance to listen to yet. But there's been a few singles that have kind of snuck out, and since we didn't really talk about new music or brand new music, I should say, last week, and we were off the week before, a couple of things kind of came across. Star One has another single, this one featuring Ross Jennings from Haken, and the song's called Prescient. that is going to be on the Revel in Time album that's coming out soon. Kind of again another track that I thought had more of an Arion vibe than a Star One vibe, but still good stuff. I enjoyed it a lot, and again, I'm looking forward to hearing that whole album. As well as that, let's see. Looking through the list, Ronnie Atkins. We mentioned him on the Best of podcast. He's got another another solo album coming out, and he released a new single called "Rising Tide." Also, good stuff. I'm looking forward to that album as well. That's another one that's on the top of my list. And I can't remember. Did I mention the new Machine Supremacy single, "We Are the Ones Who Will Change the World"? Because it's one of my favorite songs that they've done in a long time. They haven't released a full-length album in a while. They've been kind of trickling out singles, and they've been good, but this one I think is really, really pretty great. I like this a lot. So I don't know if you had a chance to hear it.
I did, and I may have posted it a couple of weeks ago. I don't recall. I'll certainly look and see. If not, I will. What surprises me about this band is that they are not more popular. They seem like they're more, I don't know, I guess the video game crowd seems to really love this band, but the metal fans not as much, and I'm surprised because I mean, I'm just a big fan of the debut album. I actually bought the demo of their demo when it came out before their first initial release, and so I've been kind of listening to them for a while. I know that some people don't love the vocals, and I don't really understand why. I happen to enjoy them, but I feel like they should be bigger than they are. So I'm glad you mentioned them. It's really good stuff.
Yes, I agree.
I,
I'm a big fan of them, and kind of sticking to the video game theme. You had brought to my attention that the Reign of Kindo had done a couple of Final Fantasy covers, and one of them was a version of the opera song from Final Fantasy VI, which I thought was so cool. Kind of done in like this chill coffee house prog rock kind of style. I couldn't find it on any of the streaming services, so you're probably gonna have to go to YouTube to check this one out. But really cool stuff. I liked it a lot.
to this day, I have no idea how they got hooked up with that project. I mean, it is just at the time they were just a small unknown band from Buffalo, and here they are, like on this Japanese, like I don't know, coffee house. I guess is the best way to say it. Coffee house disc of Final Fantasy songs. It makes no sense, but kudos to them. They somehow got on there. It's fantastic. Nobody knows about it, and I just love the band. So I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as I did. It's just I had actually forgotten about it myself, and then I stumbled upon it again, and I had to share it with you.
Yep. And then one other thing, I just found out yesterday that Veonity is coming out with a new album called Elements of Power, and they released a single called Dive Into the Light. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but I gave it a download yesterday, and it's in my queue of things to listen to. Also, you had mentioned that October Thorns was going to be releasing an album 10 years later or 12 years later, whatever, and they released another track, Page One, that dropped yesterday as well. So it sounds to me like they took those demo tracks from back in the day and just really cleaned them up. They sound really good. So that's cool. A nice little tribute to the late Dave Z. So yeah, there's just a handful of things that I heard about in the
Nice.
past
I
couple of
haven't
weeks.
heard those. I haven't heard those two, but I'll definitely check them out once we're done. I just want to mention one thing. I kind of went back into the archives myself a little bit. I upon a recommendation, had listened to an album from 2017 that I just didn't remember listening to at all, and it was a glaring omission for me. I heard an album, and sometimes you just get blown away, especially by something that you haven't heard or forgot about. There's another band out of Australia called Damnation's Day. They had started in 2013 with an album called Invisible the Dead. I thought it was great, but I listened to their 2017 release, A World Awakens, and this album is just fantastic from top to bottom. Very, very crunchy guitars, some of the best vocals you'll hear, and just so melodic and catchy. I really hope they come out with another album. It's been like almost 5 years, and they are long overdue. I don't even know if they're still active. I think they are, but I'm eagerly awaiting new material from these guys. I had told you just check out this album. I know you knew a couple of tracks from it, but just a spectacular release that just kind of went overlooked by me, almost 5 years ago now.
Yes, I'm gonna have to give that a good listen because I remember the things that I heard were good, but I don't remember anything too specifically. So I'll go back and give that a listen for sure.
Nice. But let's transition to why we're here. On June 8th, 2009, the world was introduced to Steel Panther. Um, I don't know even how to even start this one. Normally, I'll ask you, oh, how'd you hear about these guys? I'm going to start with I think I'm going to start with a disclaimer on this one. I was This is a band that I know we both enjoy, but I think we should be clear. I don't think we're doing an in-depth lyrical analysis here because we may get kicked off every single podcast platform that we're on because it is that offensive to just about everyone in the world. I mean, I don't think that anyone is safe. They didn't really go after religion so much, but they basically went after everybody else. So any other offensive topic or area for criticism, they went for the jugular, and they went for it hard, and they went for it fast on this album. So with that up front, I think it's fair to say that none of us condone or buy into the rhetoric there necessarily. But I still think that as a piece of music, it was worth doing this album, even if it was worse than I remember it in terms of the lyrics anyway.
Right. Yeah, I remember you telling me about this band back probably around the time that this album was released, and I initially just figured, oh, it's just a joke. Like somebody was just like, let's make a Motley Crue album that's just raunchy as hell, and but like no, this is like a real band that's a successful touring band that has a bunch of shows in Vegas, and lots of like celebrities have come on stage and sang with them, and so they have quite the popularity in spite of being just completely offensive, but at the same time, like they're also incredibly self-deprecating, and if you ever see any of their live performances, it's a combination of a live concert and like a roast, because they're just on stage roasting the crap out of each other and the crowd, and just it's almost like a comedy show mixed with a metal concert. It's very interesting stuff. I've yet to see them live, but I do own one of their Blu-ray performances, and it's hilarious the way that they just kind of rip on each other in between songs. They just kind of riff, and it's fun if you can kind of lower your guard to sensitivity for an hour. You'll end up having a good time.
In the current climate, it is shocking to me that these guys have not been canceled. Just like, I mean, people are getting blackballed for a lot less than what they do. And even though it's presented as a joke, somehow I don't know how it's accepted, but I enjoy it for what it is. I'm not going to lie. I'll tell you this. My first exposure to this band was actually well before the album came out. I don't even know if I've ever told you this story. So
I can't believe you just used the word exposure to describe a Steel Panther album. So we're off and running. Here we go.
I think it's on point for sure. I guess it was somewhere in like the mid 2000s. I was watching TV and I saw this commercial for this fake band called Danger Kitty. And it was for a Discover card commercial. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I do not.
Okay, this is great then. I will 100% post this commercial this week. I was watching this commercial on TV, like on broadcast TV, for this band called Danger Kitty, and they talk about their hit single Love Rocket, and then how the band was like the highest of highs in the 80s, and then they basically fizzled out and they were playing bar mitzvahs by like 2002 or whatever it was, because nobody cared about them and stuff like that. But the music in the commercial was like riveting, because it was like I felt like I was listening to Motley Crue on this commercial, and it was fascinating to me. So Discover had this promotion. I kid you not, but Discover had this promotion where if you sent them your address, they would send you the Danger Kitty 1-track CD. So I sent them my address. and I kid you not, it may have been via email, but whatever it was, contacted Discover and I said I want the album. Weeks later, I get this package in the mail, and this was probably the height of my eBay fandom, right? So I was getting packages in the mail left, right, and center, and that was not surprising. What was surprising was that I actually got something back from Discover, and it was the Danger Kitty CD in the mail with the Steel Panther. I mean, what would ultimately be Steel Panther, on this CD. So my first exposure to the band was Danger Kitty's Love Rocket, like in 2005 or something like that. And then I hear about this album like 3 or 4 years later, and I said to myself, I can't believe that this joke of a band from TV is now has this new material. But I had no idea what to expect. And then we were off and running when I got the album, which was just something to behold for sure.
Yes, and I think it was the song "Community Property" that you told me I needed to listen to, and I'll never forget putting it on and being like, "Oh, what a nice '80s style, power ballad," and then they start singing, and then I'm like, "Oh, okay, so
This
this
is
is
taking a turn real
yeah,"
fast.
and oh, I had so much fun playing this song at bars on the jukebox and just seeing if anybody was paying close enough attention that they would
Especially
just
later in the night as people got a little,
yeah.
had a couple more drinks.
No one ever noticed like that. Like they were just kind of chatting away, having their drinks, so they didn't really. I don't think they really paid much attention to it. So the song is playing, and I was always waiting for just seeing some rando at a bar have that WTF moment, and it just never happened. So that was always a disappointment, but it always made me laugh that like a song like that would be playing inside of a bar, and no one really reacting to it whatsoever.
Yeah, God bless. I remember being with you up in Rochester where you are, and seeing this come on. This was probably about a year or two after the album came out, and yeah, no pop, no nothing. I guess they just assumed that somebody put Motley Crue on the player and they were going to play Home Sweet Home or something because um, it's something. And I'll say this: having listened to the album, probably, I'll go back and I'll say it this way: in 2010 when the album came out, or 2009 when the album came out, I was listening to this a lot. I mean, a lot. And then they came out with their next album back in 2011, and they've probably released 3 albums since then, every couple of years or so. I really kind of never got into anything after this album. I just thought it was kind of derivative, nothing extraordinary, but I thought they hit a home run with this album, although admittedly, I don't remember listening to this album in the last probably 7 or 8 years. Like, it had been a long time. So to go back and just play these songs over and over, it was like a trip down memory lane. I thought I was back in 2009.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I've followed them. I've bought all their albums since this came out, but I don't think anything really resonated quite like this first one. And like you said, like it kind of the whole like the shtick gets kind of old after a while. Although they have released songs that like are fairly clean and not really that
That offensive.
suggestive. But then there's also Glory Hole. So I mean, they're they're all over the place. But yeah, I mean, I cheers to them for the success they've found. But I think I'm with you that this was probably their crowning achievement.
And I'll get into the live show in a little bit. I've seen them twice, but to their credit, they have gained quite a bit of popularity ever since this release. They are relentless on the touring circuit. I mean, they are just on the road constantly. And they used to have a residency in Las Vegas, which is where I first saw them shortly after the album had come out. I guess it was probably 2010 that I saw them right after the album came out. They would do a lot of covers, which was obviously playing to the tourists in Vegas, but then they would obviously do their own stuff as well. But to your point, it was like obviously a heavy metal show, but mixed with the comedic element, which nobody else was doing at the time. So kudos to them. They kind of found a niche and have been running with it ever since. And what's funny is these guys, the musicians, are all like fairly accomplished in their own right. And by that, I mean, like, you talk about like Michael Starr, the singer. He sang on an LA Guns album in 1998. He was in a fairly successful Van Halen cover band, and has been on a number of other guest appearances on other releases as well. But all these guys, Satchel, the guitar player, has quite a discography himself. A lot underground, but they really hit it with this band 20 years after they probably should have.
Yeah. They did a cover of Aldo Nova's Fantasy, and that song ended up being used as the theme song for Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory. And so, like, I remember with like hanging out with Mike, and I think he had the intro to that TV show on one of his power hours or something, and I'm just like, is that Steel Panther? It sounds like Steel Panther, and I looked it up, and sure enough, it was. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. Like Steel Panther's got the theme song on a show on MTV. But yeah, I agree with you about the band members. Michael Starr is like the second coming of David Lee Roth. His I think we mentioned it a bunch of episodes back, but when Eddie Van Halen passed away, Steel Panther released a cover of "Beautiful Girls," and I mean, Michael Starr is. If Van Halen was ever going to go on tour and David Lee Roth decided not to go, call Michael Starr, because he could do David Lee Roth better than David Lee Roth.
100%. I could not agree more. And this whole shtick doesn't work if these guys can't play. If these guys were not like talented musicians, this would be terrible. But what makes the album is obviously the absurd, over the top, offensive lyrical content combined with music that otherwise is pretty good. And if you are a fan of that like 80s glam or even borderline heavy metal stuff from the 80s, this is right up your alley. Like no bones about it. It's the talent combined with the comedy which makes this album. So let's get into it. The album starts with kind of an outlier track, a really short, catchy ode to heavy metal tune called "Death to All But Metal," featuring, and I don't think I even realized how many guests were on this album, but it features Corey Taylor of Slipknot and Stone Sour fame. So right off the bat, you have a pretty heavy hitter in the hard rock world, joining them on the opening track of this album, and it's one of my favorite tracks on the album. From the opening riff, you know that you are in for something that's enjoyable. And then from the opening line, and again, I'm not getting into the details, but from the opening line, you were on, you're talking about a lyrical masterpiece. Hemingway, Chaucer, and Michael Starr for writing these lyrics, because he's up there with the all-time greats, including Dr. Seuss.
I don't even know how to follow that sentence or string of sentences. I think I'm going to wrap it up. This has been the Metal Exchange. This song didn't hold up as well for me. I thought like the lyrics are just a little bit like too juvenile, and to say that about this band is really saying something. I think the highlight is the music video, which is really kind of funny and features Sarah Silverman as like the prissy school marm who ends up getting flipped to the metal side by the end of it, and I just enjoy like the end where she just goes, "I totally agree that to death to all butt metal," and he's like, no, it's not butt metal. There's nothing about a butt, and that to me is the most entertaining part of the song, is the end of the video.
Nice. Well, I mean, reasonable minds, I suppose, can differ. I'll say this. One of the things that stood out about this track, and again, I think that anything that has Kanye West, Sheryl Crow, and Motley Crue in the same song, I'm hooked, just because where the hell is that going? But what's interesting is I think that all of these songs in their own way really resemble another band from another time, right? So like this one, in the middle of the song, all of a sudden they start playing Seek and Destroy by Metallica for about 2 measures, which I just thought was really, really interesting. And obviously the heaviest song, I guess you'd say, on the album, but the excellent production, which I thought was really, really surprising, because money got pumped into this. There's no question about it. It sounds good. And I don't know, just something about this song. I thought it was a great way to kick off the album. I guess it didn't hold up as well for you, but maybe the second track did. Any thoughts on Asian Hooker?
Yeah, I think this song is great. like I think it's one of the more catchy songs on the album actually. Again, like can't really talk too much about the lyrics without being, rated R, I guess. But it's
On a good day.
yeah. The lyrics I think are a little bit more clever than most of the rest of the album. It's not too offensive, I guess.
Oh,
Just
it's
because
offensive, but I'll say this:
it's
nothing that
describing a person whose location and occupation do exist in the real world. In which case, he's
that's true.
describing a particular person. In which case, we're not saying that all Asian women are hookers or that all hookers are
No, it's a
Asian.
historical
It's
narrative. I
yes,
know what you're getting at. I think that this is doesn't age as well, although I definitely enjoy the song. It has a simple and effective riff that kind of permeates the whole thing. And I thought it was cool how, like, in the bridge section, it almost sounds like Michael Starr is rapping in the background, like as it really begins to speed up and then slows down into this really, really catchy chorus. Um, Another good tune, I have to say.
yeah. I like this one. Probably in my top three of songs from this album for sure.
You obviously spoke a little bit about Community Property, the ballad, which I think had been in my head all week. And I have to say that at different points, all these songs, I find myself like kind of just sing. I don't want to say singing because I'd probably get looks on the street, but like humming in my head, or like the songs are catchy enough that they really stick with you. And I look forward to listening to something else next week so that I can purge myself of all of this. But we'll get there. I think the acoustic guitar on this song is really, really awesome. And like I said, it reminds me of something else. This reminds me of Tesla, who we covered a couple of months ago. Um, this song, if you didn't hear the lyrics, would have been like a hit single in 1989. There's like no question in my mind, just the way it's constructed.
Yeah, and oddly enough, it's actually one of the least offensive songs on the album.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yes.
like, it's I think that the content of the lyrics set to this style of song is what makes it all the more hilarious, because it's like supposed to be this 80s power ballad love song, and it's just this guy
The
talking about,
antithesis of that.
yeah, this guy is just like you're my favorite girl, but I'm still going to openly cheat on you at all, at
But I love
all.
you.
Yeah, but I love you. It's it's a pretty honest song.
Yeah, listen. I mean, if you gotta respect the honesty, right? If
Respect.
honesty is the best policy, Michael Starr is getting an A for his honesty here. I think that one of the things I never noticed is that there's actually like a lot of orchestration in the back of this song, which kind of helps with the feel. I never noticed that before, probably because I was just too into the lyrics and the guitar work. But there's some cool orchestration on this track, and I can understand why. Like, I guess in retrospect, there's a reason why I sent this one to you first, because it was kind of one of the ones that stuck out big time when I first heard the album. I think I just played it to death, so it's not my favorite track at this point. We'll get to some of my more favorite tracks on the album, but
I
certainly
can't I
a
can't
good song.
stop laughing at you trying to like talk about orchestrations on this album. Like,
I, I
it's
I
just too
I
much.
never ever in my wildest dreams thought I would put orchestration and community property in the same sentence, but here I am. So only at the Metal Exchange, obviously. Um, Eyes of a Panther is the fourth track, and this is like the first real dud for me. I have never cared for this song, and that hasn't changed very much. Better than I remember it, but at the same time, I don't think it's a particularly great song. It starts with a very, very cool riff, but then it just kind of doesn't do very much for me when it goes forward. A lot of fluff going on here, and a lot of different sound effects and whatnot. Cool keyboards, I guess, but and I love the backing vocals. But short of that, I think it's one of the weaker tracks on the album.
Yeah, I like this one. I think I would have made this the
Interesting.
I think I would have made this the opening track. I don't know.
Huh.
It's just kind of a like a fast paced. I don't know. I think it's pretty good. Probably the least offensive lyrically on the
I
album.
agree with that. You talk about an opening track with this song. I'll say this: when I saw them in Las Vegas for the first time during their residency, this is what they opened with, and I remember being sorely disappointed because I said to myself, of all the songs to open with, I appreciate why it's an opener for that live set, and they change their set constantly because they would throw in different covers and they would play different songs off this album and whatnot. But I just remember saying to myself, I just didn't care for the song, so I wish they would have opened with something else. But you would have been in your glory, not glory hole, but glory, just listening to that. So, be that as it may, I guess we differ there.
Yeah, and should mention, I think you had said there's like Corey Taylor's on the album. Scott Ian does rhythm guitar on Asian Hooker, and there's just a number of guest musicians that we'll probably bring up a little bit more towards the second half of the album. But boy, I gotta say this next track, "Fat Girl," man, this song. It did not age well as far as lyrical content. It's pretty offensive. I mean,
and that's on an album where every song's offensive. Yeah. So you know you're onto something here.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna try to squeeze out some sort of gem of positivity out of this song, it's that like the guy's admitting that he enjoys larger women, and you know, I guess that's some sense of body positivity, but. I just don't know. It's the just in general the lyrics are basically super offensive, and the album or the song has the the distinction of being ranked at number 41 of the 50 worst music videos ever by NME. I've seen this music video. It is so horrible, and not only that, but the girl in the music video is the guy dressed up as a girl. It's just this overweight man eating pizza with like a belly shirt on. It's not a good video. Death to All Metal versus.
I think it's great. I'm not gonna lie. I you and I are so different on this album. I never anticipated this. I think this song is like kind of a little gem. Which is ironic considering the name. I mean, Little Gem, Fat Girl, I got it. I understand the dichotomy here. This is like a fun tune. And the chorus, all I want to do is sing it live. I probably wouldn't admit this to anyone, but like I think it's really, really catchy. And like
I think the song is catchy too. It's one of my favorite songs on the album, believe it or not. It's just that like
okay.
It's just, you know, in 2022 at age 39, like listening to these lyrics, it's harder for me to feel good about listening to it, being
I'm
more aware of but being like more aware of like social issues and things like that. I mean, there's a part of me that still finds this stuff funny because inside there's still a 13-year-old boy, but like but at the same time it's kind of like I'm battling because it's almost I'm almost ashamed to admit that I like this stuff in public.
Think about to me, it doesn't get worse than the outro, where you actually hear farm animals like hemming and hawing as the song goes out. I mean, like, it's ridiculous. And again, this is why I haven't listened to the album in forever. But yeah, Fat Girl. What are your thoughts on the next track, Eatin' Ain't Cheatin'?
This is
debatable. I guess.
Yeah, it's not. This isn't one of my. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm not going to go into a diatribe about morals and ethics, but I don't think this is one of the better songs. Although the lyrical content is kind of funny. It's like, you know, this guy trying to basically. Try to find a loophole in his relationship, but I just think, in spite of the funny lyrics, it's just not one of the better songs.
Yeah, I'll say this: love the opening riff. I think the entire song has a Dokken feel, and you know, we covered Dokken in the archives. They're probably my favorite, like, '80s hair band or whatever. The vocals here, I think Michael Starr just does a fantastic job. You pointed to David Lee Roth earlier. This is him doing his David Lee Roth on the album, and it's just fantastic. And that opening riff, which I love, comes back at the end of the song, which is just really cool. So I like this track. Not my favorite, but I do like it. So, I mean, offensive, yes, but kind of funny when you figure the moral quandary that he's in. So I'll give it a pass. The next track is 100% an ode to Bon Jovi. It's basically a blend of Runaway and Living on a Prayer. There's no doubt in my mind that that's what inspired Party All Night.
Yes, or Party All Day.
Yes, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Party all day,
the
party.
night is used for other activities.
Yes, yes.
So I didn't realize this for the longest time, but the lead singer from The Darkness, Justin Hawkins, has like a line of lyrics in the middle of the song, saying that he doesn't care if she's a trailer hoe or she's got 3 freaking eyes. So cheers to Justin Hawkins for that really important addition to this album.
I'll be honest with you. He sounds great when he
Oh
sings
yeah,
it.
of course.
It sounds good. Like
Listen, this is my song of the week, and in all honesty, this is one of my favorite songs by any band ever. It it is it is so catchy. I mean, I and the lyrics aren't really that like offensive to me. It's just about this guy who just wants to sit around all day and just smoke and drink and have sex all night, and it's not really offensive to any particular group of people. It's just some guy who wants to be a rock star in so many ways. But the construction of the song, like you said, that keyboard intro is right out of the Runaway by Bon Jovi book. I just think that this song is so catchy. I went through a phase about 4 or 5 years ago where I had to listen to this song every single day and it just would get me so pumped up and excited and happy. I love this song. I think this song is absolutely phenomenal, and it was an easy choice. I knew before I even listened to this album again, this was going to be my song of the week, so...
It's mine as well. I love this song. I think it's fantastic. I'm not gonna lie. Everything, like I mentioned, the Bon Jovi, whatever. If you've ever seen him live, they do this thing where he puts something on the mic stand or on the microphone, and it looks like, I think it's actually Richie Sambora that does it. He looks like he's talking into a harmonica, and it makes that like want 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 sound that like is there throughout this song, and it's obviously on "Living on a Prayer" as well for Bon Jovi. I mean, they literally went for the exact copy here, and it's fantastic. This is such a fun song and so good live. The best chorus on the album, and it just puts you in a good mood. Like, this track is amazing, and I couldn't agree more. I love this track, and it was not my favorite track probably in 2009, but when I really started listening to the album a lot the following year and whatnot, it quickly ascended to become my favorite, and going back and listening to it this week, it's still my favorite. That song is fantastic.
Yeah, it didn't hit me initially either. And then I remember one time I was just like, I don't know how it came up, but I heard it and I was like, wow, this song is phenomenal. And then it's just been like a staple in my life ever since.
Yeah.
I had to look it up because you just got me curious about this thing so it's called a talk box. And it was a device that was connected to Richie Sambora's guitar, like you said. And so the sound from the guitar is fed through a plastic tube into Sambora's mouth. And he changes the sound by changing the shape of his mouth. And it was actually famously used by Peter Frampton on the Frampton Comes Alive live album. So apparently Peter Frampton custom built the talk box for Bon Jovi. So
you learn something new every single day.
I bet you didn't think we were going to talk about Peter Frampton today.
No, I didn't. I had a list of about 10 things I thought we'd get to, and he didn't make the top 5,000. So this is fantastic, and thanks for that little insight.
We're going to do Frampton Comes Alive next week on the Metal Exchange. Don't worry.
Spoiler, I'm sure. Going to the next track, Turn Out the Lights. Any thoughts on this one?
I thought it was interesting that M. Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold does some guest vocals here. It's not my favorite song. I don't think it's horrible. It's fine. It's kind of offensive to unattractive people, I guess. I don't know how else to put it.
As a big group of just throw them into one large segment of the population, but you can imagine what Turn Out the Lights is all about. If you can't guess, can't do certain things unless the lights are turned out. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of in that eating, eat, cheating area for me, where it's like it's probably a little better than eating, eat, cheating. Eating, eat, cheating is probably, God, I said that a lot in the last 30 seconds. That's probably my least favorite song. The song's, I think, a little bit better. It's got more catchiness to it, but it's not one of my favorites. It's all right.
It's pretty good. I think it has one of the better guitar solos on the album, which I mean is pretty good. The bridge also provides a nice touch here. And then there's a point in the song where it actually slows down and becomes like a power ballad for a second, and then really goes back into the guitar solos and a pretty sick riff. So I like the song. I don't think it's the best song on the album, but I definitely enjoy it. And it's kind of forgotten about a little bit because it's buried a little bit towards the end, but it's good. It's good. We get to the second true ballad on the album, with obviously a theme that continues, and this is "Stripper Girl." Again, acoustic guitars here. A fun little song. I think that the lyrics are offensive, but like palatable, I guess. I guess is the best way to say it. This is one for me that at least has gotten a little bit better over time. Repetitive, but has gotten better over time. I don't think I appreciated it as much a decade ago.
Yeah, I think it's a shade underneath Community Property. I think Community Property is the winner ballad on the album, but it's kind of funny because I hear a song like this and I think to myself, man, if Motley Crue had like didn't have to worry about any sort of censorship and could just sing about whatever they were actually thinking, like this is the kind of stuff that they probably would have come up with. Like, it's, as the old saying goes, it's like, that we're just saying what everybody else was thinking.
They were singing about Home Sweet Home, but they were living Stripper Girl. So it's kind of funny, like when you put the two together.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the home they were singing about was a strip club, so they were just
there you go.
They were just being coy about
it. Yeah, I guess this is when you rip off the censors, you get Stripper Girl. I remember my first love on the album being the next track, The Shocker. I don't think this song aged well at all, and it's actually probably one of my least favorite songs on the album now, but I loved it when I first heard it, and this is what actually like kind of drew me to the rest of the album. The verses are kind of weak. The chorus is pretty good, but very repetitive.
The lyrics are really just kind of instructions, aren't they? Like it's scary
well, I
to
guess
me
when
that
you pull out the IKEA box, this is what you get.
It scares me that this song might be used as sexual education for some young teenagers. Like, where'd you learn that move? Steel Panther album. This song is so stupid, but the lyric about the pinky that's brown just kills me every time I hear it.
and the 220 volts of whatever at the end, that always makes me pop. It is. Listen, not my favorite track anymore. Although, like I said, it would have been. But there's a nostalgia factor here, which it still makes me laugh because it's just like so stupid, but it's funny.
This is the song that High Voltage should have come out to when they were in WCW. I think they would have been tag team champions if they had come out to this song.
Hard to argue that, and that really should have been their finishing move, the Shocker. I think that would have definitely put them over the top. Tell me. I don't know if you know any girls from Oklahoma, but what do you think of the song?
This is the last track on the album, if you're not counting any of the bonus tracks. This was always the song that I think I knew the least. It was almost like I would hear the Shocker and just be like, I can't listen to Steel Panther anymore. Like I've reached my limit of how much ridiculousness.
38 minutes into the album.
Yeah, reached my limit on how much ridiculousness I can ingest in one day. Yeah, this is it's fine. I think at the end of the day, for me, Asian hooker, fat girl, and Party All Day are probably my three favorite songs on the album. But I think this is a pretty solid way to kind of finish things up. And I think I got to listen to the bonus track Hell's on Fire. That's the only bonus track I had. And again, it's kind of like a pretty standard Steel Panther song. But what are your thoughts on those two?
Girl from Oklahoma is basically Mr. Big or Extreme, like, again, reincarnated. I think it's a really good song, and I think it's a good way to close the album. One of the things I'll say is this: it's he starts referring to the next CD in the song, which I thought was kind of cool, and that's why bonus tracks are not. This is the end of the album for me, as far as I'm concerned. There's one part at the end where they like start snapping their fingers, and I thought that was really funny, just because it's like so misplaced, but I loved it. I think it's a really good track, and it's probably one of my 2 or 3 favorite on the album at this point. Hell's
It almost
on Fire
makes me wish that like a barbershop quartet would cover it. with the
Maybe they
snapping.
will. I mean, Lexon, now you're thinking outside the box, and I like that. Hell's on Fire is pretty terrible. I never cared for it. I thought it was completely misplaced, and I'm glad it's a bonus track. I don't have anything good to say about it. It feels kind of uninspired to me, and I don't think the creative juices, no pun intended, were
Oh
flowing
Lord.
here. Yeah, yeah, I mean, when in Rome, right? I'm curious before I ask you for your rating, and I do think it's funny because we have a lot of differing opinions on the songs, but we agree on the song of the week, which is kind of like our top 50, right? We had the same album, but the lists were quite different in many ways. Going back, was it as good as you remembered it? Was it worse than you remembered it? Or is it just the fact that it doesn't age well and it was different when you were in your 20s?
Musically, it's as good as I remember it. I just think thematically it just doesn't hold up because we're just I think that we're as we're getting older we're learning to be a little less terrible to each other as a humanity, or at least some of us would like to try to wave that flag. So I think in ways like it's a little bit harder to listen to, but I think if you can put it aside and maybe after a few adult beverages and you let your guard down a little bit, it's a little bit more enjoyable. But I understand the appeal. I think it's worth kind of mentioning people that are better at describing things than myself. I'll read a couple of kind of quotes that I think really kind of
Hit
like
the nail on the head.
yeah. So I'll go with Jason Lyman Grover of AllMusic, and he said Steel Panther's ability to create songs that sound like they came from 1987 is commendable. That's about as close to clever as it gets, though. David St. Hubbins said it's such a fine line between stupid and clever, and the locker room humor wears thin quickly. Sophie Bruce of the BBC said, quite simply, Feel the Steel is an utter feel-good masterpiece. And the Independent says it's essentially Spinal Tap brought forward 5 years to the coked up cock rock era, complete with eatin' ain't cheatin' and dangerous levels of dumbass homophobia, sexism, racism, and sizeism. The songs are at times terrifyingly authentic. Is it new? Don't be stupid. Is it funny? Hell yeah. So
What
I
else can
mean,
you say? I think that hits
yeah,
the nail on the head.
yeah. I mean, just sometimes I think you just have to like think of the source. I mean, it's obviously a gimmick. They were trying to do something that nobody else was doing, and I think like, you know, there's been I think bands that have kind of spawned from this. Like I think of Ninja Sex Party, particularly, who is not really a metal band, but like lyrically it's just kind of like just that kind of goofy tongue-in-cheek, just like no frills, no censored, like just almost kind of like this just like a guy, like a teenage guy's like stream of consciousness in a lot of ways. But as far as Steel Panther goes, I mean, like you said, like you can't take anything away from the musicianship, because I think that anyone could have put together an album full of offensive stereotypes, and I think it's that fact that the music was good that is what actually made that people pay attention to them.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to before we rate the album, I want to wish longtime bassist Lexi Fox well. He left the band in July of 2021. About 3 years prior to that, he had gone into sex rehab. You know how it is. It's just sometimes you have to.
That's got to be a story. That's got to be kayfabe, right?
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I just thought it was funny.
He was.
But like,
I feel like he was definitely the one who got the most flack from
on
like the
stage.
onstage roasting.
Oh,
Like
totally.
they gave him, because he was
Hell,
like the dumb blonde persona. He was always my favorite one in the band. Actually, I always thought
not a fan of Sticks It In Ya. I
not
mean,
if
the drum.
not if it could be avoided.
Scale of 1 to 10. What are you rating this lyrical masterpiece?
It's at a 7. I think that the musical content and some of the lesser offensive lyrics that I find quite funny really kind of hold it up to probably a higher rating than it probably would have gotten otherwise. But I can't in good conscience give it anything lower or higher. I mean, I think that's just where it lands for me.
It's a 7.5, pretty much for the same reasons. I think I don't like I said I don't even know if the other albums would have been fives for me, at least the ones that I've heard. But they you remember your first, and this was definitely good. I think I probably would have given it even a little higher back in the day, but it's trending in the wrong direction. But I still enjoyed listening to it this week, so thank you for indulging me. A couple of quick news items I think that are definitely worth mentioning. Wasp and Armored Saint are heading out on a tour this fall. They begin in Anaheim, California on October 29th. They do a full run of shows across the country before coming back to California on December 9th. As luck would have it, they're coming to New York as well, actually on Long Island on November 18th. And I actually have tickets to this because A, I love Armored Saint, and B, Wasp is like a guilty pleasure of mine. I've been wanting to see them for years, and this is their first tour in a decade. So that should be a fun tour. And Amorphous, one of our favorites, has also basically come out and said that they're going to tour this spring. The shows kick off April 13th in New York City, and it concludes in Baltimore on May the 12th. And I'm starting to look at my calendar. It's filling up pretty fast this spring between Leprous and the Amorphous now, and then Riverside. It's just a lot of concerts coming along. And I think we'd be remiss not to mention the other band that is touring with Leprous, The Ocean, who unfortunately had to bow out of Prague Power USA, but I think they got a mighty fine replacement, and certainly a friend of the show. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yes. I sorry to hear that The Ocean had to fall off. I know there were a lot of people that were looking forward to seeing them. Thankfully they'll be doing a tour. Did you mention that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're doing the tour with Leprous, but they will not be playing Prague Power
Right.
in June.
Right.
But the
But they were able to get a band that we had has guested on our podcast, and also who in the last 2 years had albums that were appeared on, I think, both of our top albums of the year, and that's Seven Spires. And as far as finding a domestic band to fill a slot like that, I mean, I don't know that they could have made a better choice. I unfortunately missed the last time they played at Prague Power. They were a very last minute replacement for I believe Terra Maze, and it was the opening spot, and I think it was on Saturday. And if you knew anything about me, at 2:30 on a Saturday, there's not really a prayer of me making it into that venue unless it's like Power Quest playing. So I missed it, but I also was not nearly the fan of the band that I am now, with the last two albums being so great. I would even venture to say that the not the current album, but the one before it, I would have landed even higher on my list had I listened to it more. But that said, right now we're looking at a lineup that is Wild Run, followed by North Tail, followed by Unleash the Archers, not Unleash the Archers, my bad, Seven Spires, followed by Pain of Salvation performing Perfect Element, followed by Stradivarius headlining. So if that lineup holds true, and we don't run into any more COVID or visa issues, fingers crossed, that's a hell of a Thursday night lineup by promoter Milton Mendonça. So, or Mendoza, as he goes by in some circles. But yeah, that I mean, I wasn't a big fan of The Ocean, and in all honesty, I really didn't have a chance to listen to them that much and even develop an opinion. So this for me is kind of it's an upgrade just based on knowledgeability, but I'm super psyched about that Thursday night if it holds together with the current lineup.
Yeah, nowadays you never know what's actually going to come to fruition, but if it holds, this looks really good. And even though I was very much looking forward to The Ocean, I'll see him with Leprous. I'll make a point of going to that show when they come around here. So busy spring, but lots to look forward to. So we'll keep the hits on coming. We've got a lot of requests that have been coming in, so much so that we may even start doing more than one a month here and there, just to kind of thin out the list a little bit, which is great. I love it, because picking Steel Panther albums is only goes so far. But the pressure is on you because you have not selected an album for, like, it's got to be a month now because of everything that's happened, and I'm very curious to hear what I'm listening to next week.
Well, I thought we would go from one type of VD to another and talk about Vision Divine's original self-titled album that came out in 1999. It was, I think it was originally advertised as like a Fabio Leone solo album, and it kind of turned into like I think him and Olaf Thorson kind of working together and kind of almost picking up where they had left off with that first Labyrinth album, No Limits. That I think a lot of people don't realize Fabio was the vocalist on under a stage name of Joe Terry, which sounds kind of like a jobber in like a 1990s fighting game. So yeah, Joe Terry. I don't know. I've had this album in the back of my head for like since we started because I'm a big fan of this album. I know a lot of people prefer the loopy era of Vision Divine, but I always go back to this first album. I remember getting it. I think I got this and Luca Turilli's first solo album that we talked about a few weeks ago. They came out right around the same time. I remember getting both of them, I think for Christmas maybe that year, but whatever the case may be, that's what I wanted to talk to, and just being able to make that VD joke made just really cemented the choice for me.
I mean, how can you do a Steel Panther show and then not make a VD joke at some point? So very, very fitting. We have not done Labyrinth. We have not done Vision Divine. We did the Rhapsody, the debut Rhapsody album, but we have not done a lot of the Italian power metal, which was really kind of, I don't want to say formative, but was like really kind of big in the late '90s with bands like Skylark and others that come to mind as well. So this should be fun. I am a huge fan of those Michel Lupi albums with Vision Divine, and I always thought that for whatever reason, I guess I struggle with Send Me an Angel. I never thought it was as good, although I'm going to make a point to listen to that this week as well. But the debut album does kind of hold a soft spot for me because I was such a big fan of No Limits, and to hear Fabio and Olaf back together, albeit very close in time to that Labyrinth debut, this will be fun. I have not listened to this album in a long time, so excellent choice. I look forward to this a lot.
Me too. It's been about a bit over a year and a half, I think, since I've listened to the album start to finish. So boy, the time really goes by. So we we have an interview lined up. Is that something we want to discuss, or are we going to save that as a surprise?
I'll say it this way. I'm hammering out the details, but it would be very timely for an episode that we did some weeks and months back. But I was able to find someone that was very interested in discussing one of the albums we did. So we may just drop a special episode at one point, and when we do, we'll drop it on a Thursday. Just kind of throw it in there, and you can hear the album discussion that we're going to talk about in the archives. But I don't want to reveal it just yet because I want to hammer out a few more things first.
And with any luck, that person will end up becoming a bigger star than they ever were after appearing on our podcast and potentially ending up on some sort of news story about law.
Yeah. And shout out to Danny Estrin. But thanks again for listening. Join us on our social media pages, our Reddit page, which is now up and running, and obviously to anyone that watched today on Twitch, thank you. It's been fun, and we'll come back with some VD next week.
Oh, yeah, we will. We promise to be a little bit more mature and behaved, but maybe I don't want to promise that.
Take it easy, bud. I'll talk to you later.
Take care.